And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. Download that into your phone. It is free. You can also head to jbandgoldwatershow.com. Both ways, you can watch and listen to our program daily from 12 to 2 p.m. in its entirety for free. Tell your friends about it as well. And occasionally, we're going to cut some stuff and send it back to you. Of course, if you are part of our season ticket group, you're going to get some cut-up interviews and emailed right to you directly. Yesterday was one of those days with Luke Day, certainly joining us here on our program. If you're watching to the right of the screen, that's Darren. I'm to the left. And as I mentioned, for the next couple of hours, we're going to be hanging around, hopefully in your radio or on your television somewhere across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Radio JB and at Darren Goldwater. Phone number, and the phone lines are open, 843-321-8893, 843-321-8893. You can text that number as well. And if you're watching and listening anywhere, remember, whatever chat room is available through that platform, just type in whatever you want to type in, and then Darren over there figures out a way to put this stuff on the screen, and then I generally see it, and then we'll regurgitate whatever you've had to say.
It's very easy to put stuff on the screen. I see it pop up here, and I click it, and boom, it's just that simple. I'm playing hurt today. I have one.
You're a day late, dude. We had Luke Day yesterday.
Well, let me tell you something. If Luke Day put me through any type of workout yesterday, I would have fallen right down on my face. I have one foot. I have two, but only one that is actually functioning. So right after the show,
why?
I don't know, but I'd like to find the answer. So after the show, I'm going to go find that answer.
You need to go see a doctor, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah. I mean, an X-ray. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a gout thing. It doesn't really feel like gout.
Oh my God!
It almost feels like when I sort of partially tore my Achilles years ago. It kind of feels like that. I don't know what it is.
Well,
I know that it really hurts to walk.
All right. I'm sorry to hear all that, and best of luck to you.
Good thing is I don't have to walk doing this show. I don't move for 2 hours.
No, we're gonna be here for the next couple of hours. So we'll get Darren through this with his injury, and then we'll at 2:00 today we'll usher him off to a doctor somewhere, and hopefully that won't prevent any more programs this week. I think he'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
All right, we are busy today. We'll get to some news in a minute. Gamecocks making another hire on the coaching staff. I'll give you some thoughts on that here in just a few moments. Pat DeMarco, good buddy of mine who I spoke with last night and spoke to again this morning. I've known Pat for years. He's been on the show a couple of times with us. He went yesterday and saw the new facilities for the first time in Columbia and met with Coach Beamer and Coach Tanner and Eric Kimry and all the coaches on staff there. And so I've got a couple of notes to pass along from him. He couldn't join us today. He's on dad duty over in Atlanta, Georgia. But I do want to pass along a couple of the things he had to say. A guy who's played in the NFL for a decade, and he's not. He wasn't. Look, Pat tells me what he thinks. Okay, I know if he says something, I know if it's true or not. It's always true. So I'll regurgitate some of that here in a minute. We do have the Davos story. We'll get to that. It's not really a story, but we'll get to it. It is the exact 1-year anniversary of the unfortunate death of Kobe Bryant and 8 others on that airplane as well. Wow. It's hard to believe it's been a year, but it is. And we also have 3 guests today. Mike Morgan at 12:30 from ESPN and the SEC Network. Mike Yuva from Watch Fox in Columbia at 1. And at 1:30, Gene Sapakoff with the Post and Courier. And with all of them, we'll talk about SEC hoops. South Carolina obviously struggling. There's a big game tonight. Alabama and Kentucky are going to play. So Mike's coming up on that. He does have a game to call tomorrow, and we'll get there. We'll get into the Tennessee football search. Maybe it's getting close. Who knows? We've got the 2021 Hall of Fame ballot in Major League Baseball. We'll talk to Gene about that. I certainly have some thoughts there, and I'm sure you do as well. We've got this whole Coach K reporter spat thing, which is ridiculous, in my opinion, just ridiculous. And we'll get there in just a little bit as well. Again, 843-321-8893. That is our phone number. It is also our text line. Hey, Jamie Taylor, how you doing, buddy? Saw his text or whatever that was just a few moments ago. All right, the news from this morning is that South Carolina appears set to hire a new director of player personnel, if that is going to be his title at Carolina. We'll see if that's the official namesake of that position once it is announced. But this young man, and he is young, is coming from Maryland, and he is set to land in Columbia pretty soon. Taylor Edwards, hired now, according to Matt Zenitz with AL.com, from Maryland, and Coach Mike Locksley coming back to the SEC. Taylor Edwards has spent time in the league, spent a bunch of time as an assistant director of recruiting in Alabama, and then spent a year as the director of recruiting at Arkansas before heading up to Maryland for the last couple of years as their director of recruiting operations. The year that he spent at Arkansas happened to be at the same time that Justin Stepp was on staff with the Razorbacks as well. So there's some familiarity there between those two gentlemen and how they like to do things on the recruiting front. And certainly am anxious to hear what Shane Beamer will have to say sometime down the road, maybe tomorrow, about this new hire, Taylor Edwards, as director of player personnel for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, look, I mean, the track record seems good.
He's 32, by the way.
Yeah, very, very young, but he has risen up the ranks well. He has been, as you mentioned, in the SEC. He has been with Maryland, which has been doing their best to pattern themselves in terms of how they're recruiting after Alabama, with Locksley going to Maryland from Alabama. Well, going back to Maryland after a stop at Alabama. So, look, it's one of those newer type roles where you're kind of overseeing everything, but it's an invaluable role because it never, ever, ever stops. Right. It is a nonstop position of making sure that you are reaching out and in touch with every recruit possible. So
absolutely.
It's an important spot.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I asked J.C. Sherbert last Wednesday on our show if this is the new recruiting coordinator position, because, it's been my understanding until literally last Wednesday that every team had a recruiting coordinator position on the staff, as far as an on-field coach goes. And, I mean, that's how Shane Beamer was at South Carolina and things of that nature. Like, there's always a guy who works on the field as an official coach in some capacity that is a recruiting coordinator. But maybe that is kind of going by the wayside now with these new director of player personnel positions or whatever. I mean, we just saw Clark Lee at Vanderbilt hire Barton Simmons from 24/7 Sports, part of CBS, who's been covering recruiting for years, and essentially he's going to go to Vanderbilt and be their recruiting coordinator.
I believe Jordan Sorrells has that role for Clemson, the former Furman quarterback, and has garnered quite the reputation from Dabo Swinney as the guy that oversees it all. It's not the same as a recruiting coordinator. You could probably have both. You could definitely have both. You've got the recruiting coordinator who is one of your coaches, and then you have another one who is operating it, who is managing it. There's a lot on the, I guess, on top of everything else that goes into recruiting, a lot of it being social media, a lot of it being some form marketing, some form of recruiting blend with the marketing. I mean, so that's why young guys are in this position. Jordan Sorrells, as I mentioned, at Clemson, younger guy. 32-year-old Taylor Edwards here, younger guy. That I think that's why you're seeing guys who are familiar with some of the newer technology and can run in this fast-paced world that we're in right now. Those are the guys that have these spots.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. I do need to shift gears here. We do have breaking news. This was just popped into my email, and Frank Martin has been meeting with the media, so we're going to get more on this coming up at 1 o'clock today with Mike Uva. But according to Frank Martin, Alonzo Frink will miss the remainder of the 2020-2021 basketball season due to medical reasons, and that is it. Due to medical reasons. No more information on that. But that is a hit to Carolina basketball, Darren.
Yeah, look, we've been talking about how they need guys back on the floor. They need to find some consistency and some rhythm. And when you get information that, look, one of your key pieces isn't coming back, and we're not going to sit here and hope that he's coming back. In one way, it's not good news. He's not coming back. In another way, you can now move forward and say, okay, who are we without him? How can we get better without him without trying to just hold our head above water until he's back?
Yeah. This is something we've been talking about Carolina hoops and what's wrong for the last, few days or so. And one of the things I've continued to kind of push along is, look, they're just a lot better with big men that they trust underneath the basket. They get to go down and come back out with it, throw it in, throw it out. Basically, that's how they run their offense. And then defensively as well, having a big guy down there, it's a blow when you don't have him in a Frank Martin system. And they're not going to have Alonzo Frink. He was, look, in the last day, I heard that he was actually close to being back, but apparently that information wasn't very good. and Alonzo Frink is not going to be moving forward this season with Carolina hoops. So we'll get more on that coming up at 1 o'clock today with Mike Uva. Yeah. Anyways, to get back into that conversation, player personnel and things like that. Yeah. And how important the role is. We're going to talk a bunch about this week and definitely tomorrow with JC Sherbert, because I saw this morning. I think you tweeted it from our show account that there are something like 3,000 names, or how many names are in the transfer portal?
It's what's the exact number? I'll check on it. But the tweet was, in the month of January alone, 699 guys have entered the portal. So right. It's a new record for a single month. We will obviously continue to go up. We still have 5-6 days left in the month, but it was 699 players have entered the portal in January. In total, one of the numbers that just popped off that graphic to me, the number of FBS starts and games played among folks in the portal, you're talking like 60,000 some odd. I mean, it's staggering the amount of experience. Now, how good? I don't know. I mean, if I played and had no stats, I still played, and that registers as a game played in the FBS. But still, there's experience in the portal.
Well, I just pulled the number here. As of yesterday, 2,568 names were in the portal, and obviously that's probably changed today because there's probably guys who have decided to have selected a school, and then there's also other names who may have even been in there at this point. But let's just say 2,500 for a reference point here. It's not the old school day, as I was mentioning a moment ago, where you had the recruiting director or recruiting coordinator on staff, Shane Beamer, 10 years ago at South Carolina, or a little bit more than that, or whomever it may be. I mean, we were speculating that maybe Des Kitchings would inherit that role. And maybe that still happens. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But to your point, this director of player personnel, this isn't just a South Carolina conversation. This is a general conversation about football. You've got so much more access to high school student athletes now. They all have Twitter accounts and everything. So they pump out their videos all day and send you their stuff and their records and their highlight reels and whatever. You've got the transfer portal, which we've never seen this before.
Right.
And you have all these new ways to manage your roster year in and year out. And now you've got this pandemic involved and extra scholarships and whatever the case is, piling all that on somebody who's also trying to coach a position group, you can't do it.
Right.
It's just impossible. So having this director of player personnel to kind of sort through all this in line with what you as a staff are trying to do to fill out your position groups is very important. It's important to hire the right guy.
Yes, because what you're doing is it's in line with what we've been talking about, these analyst roles, these off-field analyst roles, because while Edwards can scout talent and while he can figure out who some of the better players are, it is not his job to necessarily evaluate the guys. It is not his job to decide whether or not they're going to be suited to play at South Carolina.
Right.
His job is to pass those names on, and then the coaches decide, all right, of this group that have been given to us by Edwards or whoever, then, which of these guys fit our mold, which of these guys can play in our type of system. Mike Morgan can probably bring a lot to this conversation as well, just because he speaks with countless different teams, not just football, but basketball, baseball. It's the same thing right now, and how it's an ever-evolving thing. And he will have a perspective of what certain coaches are doing and how their roles are changing, or at least evolving, and how they're adapting to the time.
No doubt. No doubt about that. 12:16 on this Tuesday afternoon. Where is the month of January going? 843-321-8893. It's our phone number, and it's our text line. You can be a part of our conversation by just dialing up that number or sending a message our way. Or, again, if you're watching or listening to the show, just put it into the chat room, any comments you may have, and Darren will pass them along and put them right up here on the screen. We do have Mike Morgan ahead here in about 15 minutes, and then Mike Yuva at 1 o'clock today, followed, of course, by Gene Sapakoff with the Post and Courier. I mentioned that Pat DeMarco had a chance to head to the facility yesterday. There have been a ton of former players coming back to campus at South Carolina since Shane has been hired as the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those pictures have been taken and tweeted and things like that. There are some that haven't. I know this weekend Stephen Garcia went by as well. Of course, he was in Columbia with Perry training quarterbacks as part of the QB1 Athletics quarterback camp this weekend. But I talked to Pat last night, and he said, dude, he said, those kids have it so good. That facility is ridiculous. He said, man, I've been in the NFL, obviously, as you know, for 10 years. I've been everywhere. I've been in almost every facility in the National Football League. Obviously, times have changed in the SEC since Pat played, which is now a little over a decade ago for South Carolina. He was like, this facility rivals anything that I've been in the NFL. And I was like, really? He was like, oh, it's not even close. He was like, literally, like, it's not even close. Like, you walk in and you realize quickly, like, this is a big deal. And I said, well, it's good to hear, because people who are not in the program or haven't seen it's like Clemson fans who have been in their facilities up there. They say they're the best in the country. You know what? They are. Yeah, they are. This state is so lucky to have two programs that care as much as they do. We might fight all year long about who's better and who's worse and what your mama said about her mama and this, that, and the other. And whose slide is better and whose putt-putt course has less bumps in the greens and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, tiny little old South Carolina has the best facilities in the country. And here's a guy who's been in and out of NFL parks for 10 years. Like, dude, I hadn't seen this. And you could tell it was authentic. And he talked to a bunch of the coaches. He said, and I said, well, what did you learn about some of those guys that you just didn't know? He was like, dude, he was like, here's the thing. People laugh when you say things like, oh, they really want to be here and they care. Who doesn't want to be somewhere where they're getting paid? Right. Who doesn't want to be, like, wherever you are, you want to be there, right? Not necessarily. That's not necessarily always true. But he's like, dude, these guys, I've never seen this. He's like, I was here for 4 years. I've known this program inside and out for 15 years. I've never seen a group of people that is invested like this. And I asked him about Luke Doty too, and he said, Luke Day? No, Luke Doty. Oh, okay. The quarterback, because he met him, and he said he talked to him briefly. He said the guy's rock solid. And he was like, he probably has a little bit of a comfort zone with a lot of those guys that he plays with. Mm-hmm. They're kind of buddy. He said he probably needs to leave some of that behind and try to bring those guys along, force them, push them to get better. But the dude is rock solid. So when he was on with us, Pat, the last time he was on, he was talking about the facilities, and he was mentioning exactly that. He said exactly those words. He's been in the NFL. He's seen those facilities. What Carolina has is as good, if not better, than anything that you're going to find in the NFL. It's a matter of that arms race, that recruiting arms race and the facilities race that popped up a few years ago. And the reason why we're lucky in this state is because A, Clemson is where they are.
on a national stage, and they've been able to build that around them. And B, South Carolina's in the SEC, and if you're going to compete, you better have facilities like that. Now the challenge is, and we talked about this with the coaching hire, so the stuff's in place, but who knows about it? And the majority of the recruits don't. That's the issue right now.
Yeah,
and you can't get them onto campus. So now the issue is,
right,
how do we show everybody everything that we've got, how good our facilities are, how welcoming the coaches and the players will be? How can we explain that to you without getting you into this building? That's the next challenge.
And that's the problem. That's the you just hit the nail on the head. For a team like Carolina, a program who's trying to get it turned around, who's built all this stuff really in the last 5 or so years, where you've got a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids who haven't seen it, haven't been able to see it, and you can't get them on campus because of this. Because of the COVID restrictions, the recruiting dead period, which I personally think the NCAA needs to take their finger, shove it up their butt, and go home. Get the hell out of – look, man, here's the thing. These schools – I'm not just talking about South – I'm talking about South Carolina, Clemson, every school in the country, all right? They put in all of these protocols to keep people safe in their facilities this year, all right? All of them. And from the ballpark itself to getting 100 kids in and out of their workout facilities every day to train, practice, whatever. All right. And Darren, we just went through a whole fall. There is plenty of evidence out there that they did it remarkably well. Remarkably well.
Yep.
So there is a way to get kids on campus. You can require a COVID test to show that you're negative before this kid comes. Make sure he's got his mask on. Make sure that they're 6 feet away from everybody. I mean, there are ways. You don't have to just pile 20 kids in at one time. It's not like you're shoving them all in. This isn't 1980. You're not shoving them into some little box where they're going to get some recruiting presentation with a guy standing at the front of the room with a wand in his hand and a chalkboard. That's not what's going on here. Like, you can get kids on campus. And I think I'm probably speaking for everybody out there. Not football, not basketball, not baseball, all of them. I've talked to Chad about this before. Chad Holbrook, it's like, this is ridiculous. We can't get kids on campus. You're doing the kid a disservice. The NCAA needs to get the hell out of this. Like, if you want to put guidelines in place, like, here's what you need to do to be able to allow kids to come to your campus and see it, I'm all for that. You have to have that. We have it everywhere right now until we get through this. But not allowing kids to come to campus is doing everybody a disservice.
Right. So my question is, who's the one really in the way? And my guess is that it goes above athletics, that they're the presidents of the schools, that the medical folks at the schools are essentially saying, listen, we're doing everything we can to bubble up our school the best way we can and to bubble up our athletes the best way we can, and allowing someone in that we don't have as much control over gives the opportunity for some type of breach of our protocol.
Well, but to your point, you're not wrong.
Right. You can put the guidelines in place like they are in place, say, on an airplane. If you're flying somewhere, you need a negative COVID test to certain places.
Right. But you and I are talking about X's and oranges, because I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. If there's a president out there who's not going to allow that, whatever, that's fine. You know what? If he wants to penalize his program by doing that, so be it. But if President Clements up at Clemson or President Caslin at South Carolina or wherever, if they say we're all good with it and here's why, because we feel very comfortable with our guidelines in place, then why? Why should this is an NCAA ruling. Why should the NCAA have any say at all over this? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they screwed everything up from the get-go. They didn't lead. Nobody led. The Power 5 commissioners led on everything. That's what, and their medical teams and their doctors and things like that. Why not let them lead now when it comes to allowing these kids to come to school? Hey, look, man, we want to bring you in for a visit. You got to show us a negative COVID test within 48 hours of arriving here. Your mask better be on. You can't be within 6 feet of people. You only get X amount of time in the building, and that's it. they're not. It's not what it used to be. You can't interact with players and things like that. But you can come see the facilities, see them safely. We can put you on a tour, and here's how we can do that. How was that any different from going to a damn grocery store?
So you're right. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate here because recruiting is the nature of the beast that it is and how competitive that it is. If it breaks down to each school or conference level of saying, all right, here's how we're going to do this, but other conferences are not up to speed. They don't have the resources or finances or whatever their excuse will be. I'm not saying it's a wrong excuse, just whatever the reasoning might be. Then the playing field for recruiting is heavily slanted. It's already heavily slanted. If the SEC, if the Power Five, let's say, Power Five conferences get together and say, okay, we can find guidelines. Let's come together. Here's our blueprint. Here's how we can get recruits on campus. And this goes for every sport we've got in our building. Mm-hmm. Here's how we can do this. But then the MAC says, well, wait, I can't do that. Or the SoCon says, I can't, or the Sun Belt says, yeah, I can't abide by all of those stipulations. Then the recruiting balance that's already weighted heavily tilts even farther. So how do you combat that?
Well, I guess my question to that is, what are you having to do? I mean, they're not having to pay for anything. Like, they're just letting kids come to campus and walk them around safely.
I don't know.
It's on them.
If it was an easy answer, they wouldn't keep extending this dead period.
Yeah.
So it's got it. Well, I say it has to be an easier answer or a more complicated answer than it appears. We're also dealing with the NCAA, so
and see, and that's my point. See, you're using logic. You're using logical thinking right now, which makes sense. Like, you make sense. Like, you're okay, and I appreciate what you're doing. You're trying to think for everybody involved here. That's there. There's no like, I appreciate that. And you're using logic. Like, if you were going to take your daughter today, let's say she was in high school and she needed to go to her tennis facility or something because she's trying to decide where she wants to play tennis in school, or what I don't care, whatever sport it is, doesn't matter. Like, it's affecting you more not being able to get her on campus. You're like, whoa, look, we'll send in the COVID tests, we'll abide by every guideline that there is, whatever it is, but my kid's trying to figure out where to go to school and she can't because you won't let her on campus. Like, dude, come on, man. Like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And you've got all these, and these facilities are just wonderful, and nobody can show them off. They can't show them off. Now, is it affecting Clemson, and is it affecting Alabama to the rate that it's affecting a South Carolina or a, I don't know, Georgia Tech or something like that? No, well, no, of course not.
Right.
Because they are that they're the haves.
They're a brand.
They have it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Like, if you get an offer from Clemson, you're instantly interested. They don't throw out a bunch of offers anyways. Like, you're instantly interested. You don't give a damn if they have a slide or a putt course. You don't care about that. It's Clemson football. But, like, some of this crap matters at places like South Carolina and Georgia Tech and, wherever, Arkansas, where people are trying to rebuild themselves. The NCAA is doing a huge disservice to every sport, not just football.
There's no way to close the gap. Let's just specifically stick to South Carolina here because that's where we started. There's no way to close that recruiting gap if you can't show people what you've got. And showing them what you got, they can put out awesome videos, and they will, and they'll continue to put out awesome videos and pictures, and that's great. It really, it's helpful. But until you get on, it's like buying a house. You can go on Zillow all you want and look around at all these houses, but until you get that real estate agent, you walk in the door, you've no idea what that house looks like.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely no idea. You could could look awesome online, and you could get up to that front door and be like, this sucks. Yeah. I don't even want to go in that door. It's the same general idea. So you're doing it. It's a huge disservice. Absolutely. And I would hope that the solution isn't just so easy that they're just missing it.
Just keep extending the dead period. Well, and you mentioned, we got to go. So we got Mike Morgan coming up next, but you mentioned the real estate agent thing. Have you ever bought a house without a real estate agent before, or only communicated on the phone with that real estate agent? It sucks. It's a lot better to sit down with them so they can feel out what you're looking for. And they picture a kid and a coach. Like, you want to meet these people, right? I mean, it's
there's got to be a way. It's got to be a way. I don't know. I don't have the answer.
The NCAA is, you got all this name, image, and likeness stuff. They asked Congress to get involved. they couldn't ever get out in front of it. Now they get Congress involved. And Congress, they can't get involved in anything and get anything right. And they got all this screwed up here. They got so many problems on their plate right now. It's ridiculous. NCAA is not going to be around much longer. I'm telling you. I'm not saying like a year or two, but might look up in a decade. It'll be a thing of the past. Man.
The Power Five will break away at some point.
Yeah, it's just they've gotten themselves backed into too many corners because they were so power hungry with controlling every single thing out there. We're not changing. Well, there you go. Hope you're happy. We'll be real happy when we get back because Mike Morgan with ESPN and the SEC Network set to join us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashby Phosphate Road. Have you ever put off something until the very last minute? Well, that's what's going on right now. We've got to sell 50 new and pre-owned vehicles by Monday, February 1st. So Stokes Volkswagen is lowering our prices on every vehicle. Now, every 2021 Volkswagen Tiguan SUV, instead of $2,500 off, you get $3,500 off. But wait, there's more. In addition to saving $3,500 off every 2021 Volkswagen Tiguan SUV, you also get 0% interest-free financing for 60 months, folks. This is a very rare combination to get both the super low price and super low financing on every new and pre-owned vehicle. So if you want to save $3,500 on new Tiguan and get 0% financing for 60 months, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashby Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag includes $499.50 administration fees subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end. Prior sales excluded.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what?
Hey, buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life. I'm paying you to sing.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say! You are the worst wedding singer in the world, buddy.
Sir, one more outburst, I will strangle you with my microphone wire. You understand me?
You are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Well done.
Let's get it started. Let's get it
started. Jamie always sends the bumps. He does all the production, so he sends them. And then he shows.
I don't do all the production.
I do the audio production.
You do all the production.
So he sends it. He's like, "Did you get it? Yeah, I got it. Did you listen?" Like, no. But so when I play it, it's the first time I actually hear it, and they're funny.
That was. Yeah, I don't know. I thought of that out of nowhere. I don't know how I thought of that. But I thought of it. I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny.
Yeah. All right. 12:34 on this Tuesday afternoon. Do we have Mike yet?
We don't have Mike.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike Morgan should be joining us here in just a few minutes. Let me make sure that I said 12:30. I did say 12:30. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. He did get the Zoom.
He got the link. Okay. Unless I sent him the wrong one, but he hasn't let me know yet that he can't get in.
All right. We'll have Mike Morgan here in just a moment with ESPN and the SEC Network. So last night, Scott Eisberg, the great Scott Eisberg from Channel 4, uncovers the mysterious Dabo video. I don't know if any of you heard of it. I don't think it's really that big of a deal, to be honest with you. But Scott Eisberg, literally with Channel 4, came across a video posted by Darian Rencher's girlfriend, and they just happened to kind of spill the beans in this video. It was like I don't know what they were doing, some type of documentary or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, well, Coach Swinney has COVID, so he's not going to be at our banquet, which was about 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So. And everybody's like, wait, what? What happened? And yes, at that banquet, Coach Swinney had joined virtually. So apparently, maybe he did have COVID. There hasn't been an official statement from Clemson on this. Mike Yuva also kind of clipped that version of the video and tweeted it out last night. And of course, there's some Clemson fans quick to his success, or quick to his defense. Give the guy some privacy. Look, man, let me tell you something. When you're a $90 million coach, that privacy goes out the window, number one. Number two, nobody went knocking on his door and sniffing around his house.
Yep.
His running back's girlfriend tweeted or put the video out. If he wanted privacy, take it up with him.
Does this matter?
I mean, dude, no, it doesn't matter.
Okay, just checking.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing that matters is, as a coach who's worth $9 million a year, just being an advocate probably for COVID. That's about it. Here's my story. Here's what I went through. Very similar to Mike Martin, something like that. So, all right, we do have Mike Morgan joining us now from Atlanta, Georgia. So I know what the holdup was.
Oh,
because I just got a text from my friend, your friend, and Mike's friend, the lovely and talented Debbie Antonelli. That said they just got off a Zoom call with Jerry Stackhouse. So apparently neither one of them are on the media ban list by Stackhouse, which is good.
No, Jerry loves us because, and I can speak for Debbie on this because we just wrapped up the call. I feel the same way. Jerry had a great point, and I've mentioned this before. And I catch myself doing it sometimes where the older I get, the more I call the student athletes kids. He's a kid. She's a kid. I don't know about you guys. When I was 19, 20, 21 years old and putting myself through college and working 2 jobs and taking classes, and mommy and daddy were a long, long ways away, I didn't consider myself a kid. I consider myself a young man. Yeah. And Jerry Stackhouse made the point that, when these kids do something well, we glorify them like they're grown men. And then when we criticize them for doing something poorly, which Vanderbilt certainly has, then we say, oh, the poor kids. Look, I'm not saying that there's not a line where you can't go too far, and we've seen coaches do that. I don't think what Jerry Stackhouse said or did was too far at all. Jerry's got his own questions to answer in terms of where the program's at. They brought him in. They paid him a lot of money. As he pointed out, they gave him – this wasn't like a 2-year deal. This was a 6-year commitment that the old AD for Vanderbilt, Mr. G League, and I forgot his name already, but that's – they basically said, look, this is not a trial by error situation. We're making a long-term commitment to you. So – Jerry's not quitting anytime soon. And he expects his kids to play better and to give effort. And that's the problem. Like, you can deal with the fact they're not very talented. They're going to be an underdog more times than not in the SEC. But when you don't see the effort and the execution, that you can be critical of. And he certainly was so on a public stage. And a lot of people took Stack to task on that, just as they take college football coaches and other college basketball coaches. Whenever you rip into the kids, then all of a sudden a lot of people think that's going too far. I didn't have any problem with what he said.
I didn't either. I thought it was a rumor at first, and then I started digging around, and I saw there were some media folks who said, yeah, I've been blocked by Jerry Stackhouse on Twitter. And of course, some of them I'm not big fans of anyway. So I kind of laughed at it, but hey, you know what? You're right. He's got a job to do. His job is to get Vanderbilt to win basketball games. They're not doing it right now. They're trying to figure out a way to zero in, look down that hallway, one vision, one goal, the whole 9 yards, all those terms that you want to use. And that's what he's choosing to do. If you look up 5 or 6 years and they're still hadn't won a game in the league, or maybe not that long, 2 or 3 years. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was the wrong choice, but I don't disagree with them. By the way, Mike and Debbie will have this call tomorrow night, 6:30 on the SEC Network. Vanderbilt at Florida, who, by the way, has all of a sudden gotten it together. They whipped Tennessee and then
Big
beat
time.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and they're doing it. They've been hit by COVID. They've been hit by injuries. They've been hit with perhaps the most significant loss of anybody in the conference when you lose the preseason player of the year in Keontae Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine is going to return. So it would have been easy to have all of those as kind of alibis for Florida to have a down year, but that has not been the case. They've actually really played well the last couple of weeks.
12:40 on the Tuesday afternoon. Mike Morgan with ESPN and the SEC Network joining us. Well, don't tell any of that to Carolina fans because nobody's got bigger problems than the Gamecocks right now, according to the fan base. And you know what? It's hard to really disagree with them. And they got worse news today because Alonzo Frank is going to be out the rest of the year. So that's a big man down for Frank Martin, and they need him bad. They're 1-3 in the league, 3-5 overall, and they've lost 3 straight. And their defense, Mike's given up 92 points per game in the last 3, 85, 81. And then this shredding by Auburn on Saturday, 109-86. All right. You called Carolina basketball for 10 years, I think. It felt like 40, and I wish it still was happening sometime.
I think technically it was 7.
Whatever.
I called baseball for 10 and men's basketball for 7. I had 1 year of women's basketball. They made it to the tournament that year.
There you go.
Yeah. They weren't as good as they are now, though.
No. Whole different era.
You get a handful of games every year for South Carolina. You've been calling Frank Martin coach Gamecock team since he arrived on campus.
Yeah.
Mike, I hadn't seen defense this bad in his tenure. It's bad. When you look at him, what do you see?
Yeah, well, kind of like what I was just talking about with Jerry Stackhouse and the way he was outspoken against his guys. When I watched that game, yes, they're outmanned, but they're much more talented than Vanderbilt is, quite frankly. And I saw problems with effort and execution. And that's going to drive a coach, whether it's Frank Martin or anybody, crazy. I didn't see the effort that you want to see. I thought the team looked deflated. Now, look, I always say this because remember when Tennessee got blown away by Florida a couple weeks ago? And I say in college basketball, the conference season, it's a grind, man. 18 games. I give everybody one mulligan. I give everybody one game where they look uninspired, disinterested, don't do anything well, and get beat soundly. The question is, was that Carolina's mulligan? Because, I had them against LSU. They played great for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Very easily could have won that game. A.J. Lawson is going to be an all-SEC performer. He's probably going to be in the NBA next year. I don't think he's a flawless player by any stretch, but I've seen plenty of flawed players go to the NBA. I don't know what's happened to Jermaine Couisnard. It's not the season that I envisioned for him. And I knew Frank was going to be out for a while. I wasn't allowed to share that, but we knew that going in our preparations for the LSU game. That was kind of common knowledge for us. But I mean, look, does missing him and McCreary hurt? Absolutely, but it's not enough to where you just get throttled at home against Auburn. That's not that big of a not that physical of a team anyway. I mean, they caused some matchup problems, but they were just quicker. I mean, they were just quicker about everything. There was more want to on every loose ball, on every rebound, on every switching off a screen, fighting through a screen, setting a screen. I mean, they just Bruce got the max out of his players that game. Frank did not. Now, I don't expect that trend to continue, because that's not Frank's track record at Carolina. They don't lack effort usually. So I expect them to play better, but I don't know what to make of this team. It would have been a lot easier to know what to make of it had it not been a span of going 2 games in 6 weeks. Had it not been your head coach has been battling COVID really all season long. Then I would have been able to look at them on paper and deduce it based on what I knew was coming back. And I thought that this had a chance to be a good year. I don't know now. It's just a big question mark about what this team is and what they're going to look like going forward.
Let me ask you this about Frank Martin himself. I mean, when when you see him on the sidelines, he doesn't appear to be himself. And I know that COVID really took a number and took a toll on him. How bad was it? I mean, I can see it, but in his words, if you've had a chance to talk to him or some of the assistants, I mean, how bad was it, and how much is it really affecting him and the team?
Well, this last round, where he tested positive in every way, shape, and form, and clearly has COVID, to use his term, I'll clean it up a little, but it kicked his rear end.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys, and I didn't make it public when it happened, but I had COVID during football season, and got it back in late October. And so it affects everybody differently. So I'm not going to sit here and say I can relate to what Frank is older. Frank, I believe, has had some health issues before. So it might have hit him a hell of a lot harder than it hit me. And, it hit me hard. I was miserable for a week. There's no doubt about it. It's the real deal. And thankfully, I got better. I shook it off like the flu in due time. And I've been healthy as a cat ever since. But for Frank, clearly he's not himself. It doesn't look himself, doesn't sound himself. And I hope for his sake, on a personal level, that he just gets better as soon as possible. And as great a job as I can't say enough about what Coach Shingler did in that LSU game. I thought he was fantastic, considering, I mean, the guy hadn't coached a game since the AAU circuit in a tournament in Vegas. And here he is running the show and trying to beat a quality team on the road and almost pulled it off. They need Frank Martin, though. This team needs Frank Martin. They need their head coach. They don't have a guy that with a ton of head coaching experience on the sideline. They don't have a Brad Underwood type. They got to have Frank. If this team's going to have a chance to bounce back and make a run of some kind, they got to have Frank. And then even with Frank, some guys just have to play better. I mean, they just do, because the word is out. Like, Lawson's going to get his, but what else are you really fearful of when you play the Gamecocks right now? It's not Seventh Woods.
No.
Tell you that. It's not many other post guys. So, okay, even if Lawsy runs up 25 on you, what else is going to beat you when you play the Gamecocks? That's the question.
Yep. Well, a couple things from Frank today. First of all, I have one answer or one response to Mike's comment there. You know, it might be time to figure out a way to get Keyshawn Bryant in the lineup. It's not really figuring out a way. You just put him in the lineup. I know that he's best off the bench, but getting down 10 and 12 points in the first 3 or 4 minutes isn't working right now.
Right.
You know, so they got to get some spark early on, and it might be Keyshawn Bryant, who's been playing the best basketball of his career. Mm-hmm. Also, Frank did say a little while ago, Jalen McCreary did practice yesterday, and he seemed okay, and he's going to practice today, and he's going to play tomorrow. So that'll be another big man back for Carolina, which is good. Levesque needs it. And then a couple of other quick notes here, and then, Mike, I want to move on to the next two games, then let's get to Tennessee with you. But he said, look, you know, he mentioned the term emotional turmoil is what his team's been going through. And he said, look, the only way to improve when you're in a slump is to get in the gym. And he said for his team, when they were in quarantine, the gym was closed. And if they got caught in an outside hoop or gym, they were a suspension from the school. So they were kind of up against it, and they're trying to move forward. Here's I mentioned this yesterday, Mike. I mentioned this to Darren. Here's the optimistic viewpoint for Carolina fans too. Georgia and Vanderbilt are next on the schedule. All right, now you've got Vanderbilt tomorrow night. You had Georgia when they beat Kentucky 63-62. You know, Georgia's capable of probably beating almost anybody in the league, maybe except Alabama at this point in time. But combined, they're just 2-10 in the SEC. Carolina could be looking up in the next week and say, okay, we're 3-3 overall, 5-5 overall, 3-3 in the league, because these are two winnable games over the next 4 days. You've seen both teams. Mm-hmm. How does Carolina compare to Georgia and Vanderbilt at this point in time?
I think this is their best chance to win 2 games in league play back to back. Vanderbilt right now is behind the 8 ball, might finish last again. And Georgia might not be far behind them. I love Tom Crean, and I like a lot of the things that they do. And yes, I did call the upset win over Kentucky, but to me, that was more about what Kentucky didn't do as opposed to what Georgia did do. Georgia's not an ultra talented team, and at times they just give up a ton of points. So in a relentless, unforgiving SEC, those are probably your best bets. And I didn't even realize it till you said it that they're back to back.
Yeah.
If I guarantee you, if you look at like the 3-4 games right after that, you're probably going to be an underdog in most of those.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So take advantage of that stretch if you can. And I'm not disrespecting either one of those teams because they can beat you. But I'm just telling you, if you break this league, let's say into halves, those two are in the bottom half. The top half is all going to the NCAA tournament. Those are tournament-like teams. In the case of Alabama, that's a team that easily could be in the Final Four. Tennessee is a team that certainly has that type of ability. Nobody wants to play Florida right now. Arkansas. So you're really up against it in those matchups. So you gotta find the games on that schedule where you're not completely outmatched, and you've got to play well enough to win. Again, if you're going to have any shot at the NCAA tournament, if that's still the goal, and I assume it is, those are the kind of games you have to win.
Yeah, well, it should be the goal. I mean, this team's been around a while, and there's a lot of talent.
I agree. Look, I thought last year had a chance to be an NCAA tournament team, and they had some disappointing losses at the end of the year. And then I thought, well, this year, now's the time. They got a break when A.J. Lawson came back, which I think is the right decision. But, you get bad advice. All these kids are getting bad advice on, they want them to go pro so they can profit off them. So you have one of the most veteran backcourts in the SEC. I don't know when you're going to have that again. That doesn't happen every year for anybody, right? And then you've got some veteran guys in the front court. They're not the same type of caliber of players, but they give you stuff. And then you mentioned Keyshawn Bryant. Game I had against LSU, he was phenomenal. It was the best performance of his life. We all know the just ridiculous athleticism he has. He's improving his shot. He's improving other facets of his game. So, yeah, I mean, to me, this had all the makings of a team that could certainly push for an NCAA tournament bid, and maybe they still do, but obviously they have to play better.
Yeah, got to get better at the point. Jermaine Kusnar's got to get going. I mean, he's got to get – this team is good when the ball goes inside and comes back out and they hit shots, and they're not doing any of that right now. So they got to get better there. All right, Mike, Tennessee's trying to get better on the gridiron, and who knows how close they are to hiring a coach. They've, very similar to South Carolina. They've actually done a nice job with keeping this close to the vest. I know there's names floating around. We've seen big ones like Matt Campbell and James Franklin, and then we've seen others that seem maybe a little bit more realistic, like Sonny Dykes, like Tony Elliott up at Clemson. Danny White, of course, is heading this thing up as the new athletics director. No matter what, he'll claim a national championship at some point in time. But when you look at this search, what is right for Tennessee, where they are as a program and where they're trying to go? What type of coach in your mind is right for the Vols?
Well, I think this coaching search will resemble the one at Auburn, will resemble the one at South Carolina. As an AD, you do what, for example, Ray Tanner did. You do, for example, what Mr. Green did at Auburn. First, you go for the guy you probably know you're not going to get, but you at least got to make those phone calls. In the case of South Carolina, that was Matt Campbell. You got to go for it. What's the worst thing he can do? Say no, right? It's like in high school. Not usually the studliest guy gets the hottest girl. It's the guy that's willing to step up to the plate and at least ask her to the prom. Yeah. I was never that guy, by the way.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah. No, I couldn't take the humiliation, so I just never asked.
No,
I
stepped up to the plate and got hit by a pitch every time. It was never
but you kept coming back for more.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So anyway, my point is, Danny White is as highly regarded as he is. As I always tell you and everybody else, it's not the allure of the AD that convinces these coaches to go to your school. It's the job itself, because everybody's got money to play with. So am I going to take the Tennessee job knowing they've been just ridiculously bad in so many ways over the last decade, and NCAA sanctions coming down the pike, Is that an attractive job for me? Top-notch coach at the peak of my value. So that's where you start crossing off the list, the Matt Campbells of the world. I don't think that I've heard some other names that are not realistic, but you could go after a Coach Chadwell at Coastal Carolina. Billy Napier seems to like to turn down jobs, or say he's turned down jobs that he hasn't been offered. Maybe you go after him. I don't know, but what's going to happen is they're going to go for home run, and my guess is they're going to be a couple swings and misses, and then you go for the more realistic candidate, which is for a guy that is not in a great situation already, and you can pay him more money and you can sell him. And this is what Tennessee's going to have to do. No one's taking that job without a long-term commitment. That means high buyout. Of course, they're going to have to pay Pruitt's $12-13 million to begin with.
Yep.
And a lengthy contract. You're not going there with a very suspect deal, considering you're going to take a lot of losses early on in that job. You just are. So I think Danny White's a smart enough guy to do all that and to know all that. And Tennessee fans will think they are entitled to every big name out there, and then eventually they'll realize this is what the best you can get, and then they'll applaud the hire, and the guy will win the press conference, and life will go on in Knoxville.
Is it going to be good enough, though? So Danny White has a wonderful track record, but if when Oates was hired, when Nate Oates was hired in Buffalo, there was still a sense nationally of who's this guy, who's replacing Hurley.
Right.
Same thing with the football coach, right? Josh Heupel had more of a name. He's had success with guys who are a little bit under the radar, but will that fly at Tennessee? Can you win a press conference at Tennessee with a guy who's not a name?
Well, and keep in mind, and I loved your two examples, but here's the difference. Nate Oates was already an assistant at Buffalo under Bobby Hurley, who no doubt recommended him for the job. Right. Josh Heupel was already an assistant at UCF for Scott Frost. Right. You don't have that luxury here.
Right.
Everybody's been fired. It's just a cloud of smoke. Poof, they're all gone in the Jeremy Pruitt era, not to mention the AD that hired him. So you really have this is kind of a new one, I think, for Danny in some respects. You're really starting from scratch. This is unlike any other situation. And I loved what he said at the press conference. That was part of the attraction. I like the fact that it's not a great situation right now. Well, all that's true until you have to actually start putting up results and the fan base gets impatient again, and they will, like every other SEC fan base. And then all of a sudden, after the home run press conference, it's, hey, how many more years do we have to wait to be good again in football? The probation gives you a little bit of cloud cover. It did Matt Luke at Ole Miss for a couple of years, and then a disappointing loss to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, and they just decided, let's fire him. And they did. And so you get a couple of years of just kind of flying under the radar, limited pressure. After that, it's just like every other cutthroat job in this league.
How different would this search be right now if they weren't in the middle of this investigation into their football program? You think that if they would have just fired him, they said, you know what, forget it, we're going to pay the buyout, we just don't want him here anymore, we're just going to pay to get rid of him, no mention of any NCAA investigation or anything like that, you think they'd already have one of these names in place?
It's a great question. I think it'd be very similar to South Carolina. I think there's a lot of people that would be surprised how many coaches didn't think the job was nearly as attractive as the fan base does.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I think that a lot of Tennessee fans have been living this notion that we're an elite program, that we can get whoever we want. Remember the John Gruden rumors a few years ago?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my goodness, they were convinced they were getting John Gruden. There's no way he would turn that down. But in actuality, look, Tennessee hasn't been good to great in a while. It's been nearly 20 years.
Right.
I mean, it's been 10 years of a debacle, but Phil Fulmer didn't, as I mentioned to you last week, Phil Fulmer had 2 losing seasons in his last 4. So they weren't exactly riding high in the last few years of Phil. No, I think there'd be some interest by the so-called mid-major coaches for sure. but people would not be lining up for the Tennessee job. People were not lining up for the Auburn job the way a lot of Auburn fans thought. People were not lining up for the South Carolina job. The reality and the perception for these fan bases, very often there's a chasm in between the two. Yes, they're great jobs. You're going to make a lot of money. You're in the premier conference in college football. But the turnover, we have fired 8 coaches in this league in the last 2 years. These coaches are smart enough to know that as good as the job might be when they get it, if it's more difficult than the average job, maybe you don't want it because you could be fired in 2, 3, 4 years. And then all of a sudden, maybe it wasn't a great decision to take the job in the first place.
Great point. Real quick on this. What do you think the dynamic is between Danny White and Peyton Manning, at least to start? Because apparently he's got some pull now.
I mean, look, I love Peyton like everybody else, but this is just another case of the warm and fuzzies. Like you invoked the name Phil Fulmer to convince everybody that, oh, the last AD was a moron and Phil Fulmer knows what he's doing because he won a championship and therefore everything's going to be hunky-dory. We saw how that ended. Peyton Manning is a Hall of Fame player. I'm not convinced Peyton Manning is the guy that's going to make the right decision on who to hire and who not to hire. And I mean, you've had some Tennessee fans calling up Paul Feinbaum and saying we should hire Peyton Manning as a head coach. Based on what?
Oh, okay.
I mean, come on. There's a difference between being a Hall of Fame player and just walking in with no coaching experience and taking over a job like that. So it's a great story and it makes nice headlines and it allows you to hearken back to the days of, oh, how great things were when we had Peyton Manning. But Peyton Manning, to me, is not going to move the needle one way or the other on Tennessee football getting out of the hole that they're in right now.
Before I let you run, Mike, couple of important games tonight in the SEC. Does Kentucky, maybe act like Kentucky on the road at 9th-ranked Alabama? Boy, the Tide are good. They're, I think, 6.5, 7-point favorites in this one, 7 o'clock on ESPN. And then you got Missouri late tonight at 9 o'clock on ESPN 2, I think, on the road at Auburn. Remember, Auburn can't play in the postseason, but Missouri can, and they're number 12 in the country. Can they go on the road and beat the Tigers?
Oh, they certainly can. They're good enough to do it. I would make Auburn a favorite. Auburn's playing really well despite that comeback loss against Arkansas. Auburn is a dangerous team. Sharif Cooper is a dynamo at point guard. Nobody knows how to defend him. He's 5'11", lightning quick, sees the floor so well. See, that's not coaching. That's something Sharif Cooper's had in him from probably since the days of playing Pee-wee. You don't coach a kid to see the floor the way Sharif Cooper does. That is a difference. In a full season, he would win at least 5 more games for you, if not more. So I am a huge Sharif Cooper fan. But yeah, Missouri could win that game. Alabama, to me, I'm not picking against them much at all the rest of the year. They're that good, and I've already told you how I feel about Nate Oates. I think he's an elite coach. So it's going to be a tall order for Kentucky to win that game. Winnable. They still have talent in Lexington, but it'll be a tall order.
Yeah, if you're an Alabama fan right now, you don't ever want the clock to tick off of 2021. I don't know if they've lost in anything this year.
That's a good point. The year's been really good. I mean, as bad as 2020 is, it's been great for Alabama.
I don't know what their baseball team's going to look like. I think they might be a top 25 team.
Preseason top 25.
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go. Let's all go to Tuscaloosa.
Problem solved in T-Town. The Houndstooth is going to be rocking here in the spring. Wow.
It's not a bad deal to be an Alabama fan in 2020, 2021. No doubt about that.
All right. I don't know if anybody's noticed this. Of course, Mike is, as we let him go here, Mike is with us today via video, but there are a couple of similarities in our backdrops. Right over my head is a Carolina basketball jersey. Over Mike's right shoulder is a jersey of Jimmy Chitwood.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I already had the see if you can I already had the Hoosiers DVD.
Uh-huh.
And then my girlfriend for Christmas got me the Hickory Chitwood jersey. I don't know where she found it, but a cooler gift I've never been given.
Yeah, that's
and when I found out we were doing these studio broadcast or home studio broadcasts, I'm like, yeah, that's going in. That's in the backdrop.
Dude,
I just added the Hank Aaron, and you can't see it. I do have a miniature.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
We can see it.
No, you can see that, but you can't see. I've got a miniature Gamecock helmet that's just out of the frame. I've got something from every SEC school, and people say, "Did you buy that when you found out you were?" I said, "No, I've had all this stuff. I'm a hoarder. I've had all this memorabilia for years and years and years. Just now, somebody besides me gets to see it, so it's kind of cool. And I've had that Hank Aaron SI cover. That was in my man cave for years. That was a gift to me years ago, and I loved it then, and I obviously love it even more now. But yeah, I'm having fun with this. Look, like all of us, we all wish we could be there. We all wish that there were sellout crowds. I miss the sound of the noise in the arenas and in the football stadiums, but you just make the best of it that you can, and I'm having some fun with this.
Good. Well,
Have you noticed the shirt, by the way? Okay, hold on. I don't know my left or right. This is the Great Alaskan Shootout logo.
Oh, wow. Good one.
This is Dave Odom's third-year team.
Yeah.
All these schools get to go to these tournaments. Of course, I always wanted to do the Maui Classic. Dave wasn't about all that. It was too much fun. So Dave wanted the Great Alaskan Shootout, and this was the year after the NIT championship. And we went out there. You can imagine Ronaldo Balkman in a snowball fight in Anchorage, Alaska. These are priceless images that you cannot make up. Anyway, I didn't know what to think. I thought it'd be cool just to say I went to Alaska, but it's dark. That time of year, it's dark 20 hours a day. The temperature was like 1 degree when we got there, but I had a blast. I loved every minute of it. This tournament used to be historic. It doesn't exist anymore. It's very expensive to get there, and again, there's no warm weather, there's no beach, there's no anything like that. So it's gone, but I still have the shirt, still have the memories. That year, Carolina made it to the championship game, and I think in overtime lost to a Marquette team coached by Tom Crean.
Oh, wow. Wow. Going deep into the history basket for that one. That's good. Yeah. I remember that, too, as a matter of fact. Nice reference to Baltman because I just picture Sanka from Cool Runnings clipping off one of his dreadlocks.
In the ice truck.
Yeah. Ice truck. Yeah.
Ronaldo was a different dude, man, but boy, he was fun to watch.
Oh.
I had so much fun calling his games. I've never seen a more relentless rebounder. He was raw as can be. Didn't dribble well, didn't shoot well, but he would win you games on effort, energy, tenacity. All those things right now, they can win you some games, and that's what he gave you.
All right. Stuart Wingo can give you the lowest mortgage rate out there. How do you find it?
Smooth. See, that's why you guys are the best in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Transitions like that right there, and you're right. He can give you the best mortgage rate. One of your lucky audience members, somebody today, there's already been a few that have called, saved a lot of money on a refi or even a new mortgage. That phone number right there, no matter where you live, 803-319-1777. You can tell Stuart that we were bragging about him. We're bragging about him just in a business sense. I mean, this is not an athletic man. He's not a great-looking man. I don't even know if I would drink a beer with this man. I just know one thing. If I'm going to save thousands of dollars on a mortgage, I call Stuart Wingo. That's all I know.
Yeah, well, it's a smart move, certainly, and we all need money these days. Give him a call. The number right there, certainly on the screen. And, Mike, we can't wait to have you back, man. Looking forward to the call tomorrow night. You've got Vanderbilt and Florida, of course, from home, but it's down in Gainesville is where the game will actually be played. And really good stuff as always, my friend. Have a wonderful week.
Guys, always enjoyed it. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mike Morgan, Debbie Antonelli. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to just transition right to Mike Uva.
We can do it.
We generally have the national anthem at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but we are running way past time here.
Great. Now there's going to be a bunch of patriotic people that are going to be pissed off.
Look, have a Bojangles, Bowberry, put in a biscuit, and it'll all be fine. We'll get the anthem before Gene Sapakoff coming up here in the 1:30 segment. Mike, sorry to keep you waiting. we've got Mike and Mike today. Our
That's
version
right.
of Mike and
No,
Mike.
you're good. I was enjoying the stories and just looking at the Hickory jersey in the background. I mean, Mike's obviously, you guys know him, a phenomenal guy. I didn't get to cross paths with him as much because when I got down here in 2016, but he's always been someone able to talk to just for advice. So, it was cool to be able to see at that office again and be able to listen to the stories.
Yeah. I've known Mike for a while, and there are just not many in the world better than him. First of all, as a human, he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. But obviously, most folks know him as a broadcaster. And look, I say this, and I know that I'm a little bit biased. I get that, but anybody that's listened to him call a game, whether it's on radio or on television, he is flat out one of the best.
I'll tell you this: when I first met Mike, I don't even know if I was the number one guy for the Citadel. I might have just been doing Citadel baseball when I ran into him doing Carolina baseball. And not all play-by-play guys are really willing to help younger guys and help guys behind them to continue to succeed, because then you're taking their job at some point. But Mike was always great to me. So I first met him, I don't even know when, but years and years ago. He's always great.
Yeah, he's my go-to guy in this industry. Always has been for years, and I just am so grateful to Mike Morgan for everything he's done. All right, well, we're grateful for you. All right, so let's get you in here, Mike Uva with Watch Fox. All right, so we already dished a couple of the details from Frank today. Not necessarily the most optimistic or enthusiastic press conference ever.
I try to do. I never am the one that makes jokes, but Frank and he knows I'm a Patriots fan. I know he's a Dolphins fan. So there was a reference about him not buying jerseys. I made a Larry Zonka reference because I will always put a smile on his face. Nothing. And there's nothing worse than a swing and a miss in a press conference when you try to do something like that. If you're a young journalist, just don't even do it. I never do it. I did it today, and I fell flat on my face. But yeah, continue. Just, oh God, that's just still in my head.
But did he call you out like Coach K called out the student journalists?
No, and honestly, what a joke that was on both sides.
I agree. What did he do? He didn't do anything.
Did he give a great answer? No, but at the same time, too, it's just like, I've heard much worse in press conferences. I mean, geez, go watch a Will Muschamp press conference. Go watch some of these other ones. I mean,
Saban,
Bobby Knight. Don't even get me started with that.
I've heard Dabo way worse than that with guys. I mean, and this is just a kid. Give me a break. Okay, he didn't
say anything bad. What did he say? He didn't give like this direct answer. I mean, life's not all sunshine and rainbows, kid. I mean, not to bash young reporters, but it wasn't anything bad, because if he had said something bad, I would have been the first to defend the kid. But on both fronts.
I thought he actually taught him a nice lesson. Hey, look, what's your major? What happens if you don't do well on the test? You got to figure out what you did wrong, right? You got to reflect on it.
Kid should have turned around. He's like, I would have studied harder, coach. What are you guys going to do? But
exactly. But some of the national media boys, they've never done anything athletically in their lives, and they don't know anything about it. All right, Frank today did announce that Alonzo Frank out for the year. He mentioned the term emotional turmoil with his basketball team. He did say that Jalen McCreary is going to play tomorrow night, which they need him back. They got a 2-game stretch. It's very winnable here with Georgia and Vanderbilt up next. But just, as you heard him speak today, I mean, you just touched on it. As he was going through this press conference, what did his actions tell you about the state of the basketball program?
Frank's just not himself right now. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And one of the things he discussed today is his health. And if he had to put it between a 1 through 10 in terms of coming back from COVID for a second time, he said he'd be at a 6 right now. And if it wasn't for the fact of feeling a responsibility and an obligation to his team, first and foremost, and the university, he would have opted out for this season. I mean, he said those exact words within the last hour. Wow. So Frank, from a health standpoint, he is taking a beating. I had a chance to be able to see him a week ago after the Carolina Call show over at Home Team in Columbia. And I had a chance to go up to him, and he was his upbeat self, making jokes and, busting balls as he always does. But, it just didn't seem the exact same, and after this past weekend's game, I think it's really taking a toll on him, emotionally, physically, mentally, avenue that you can think of, I think it's really hitting them right now. And that's not to make excuses, but at the same time, too, anyone that has watched the Frank Martin team or has covered Frank Martin, has watched the Frank Martin press conference, knows the energy that he brings. That's kind of his MO, right? It's not the Kansas State days by any means. He's kind of turned it down a notch, but he still brings a lot of energy, and it's just not the same right now. And quite honestly, it stinks to watch, whether you're a Frank Martin fan or you just enjoy college basketball. Just seeing someone not be themselves, especially a guy like Frank Martin, it's just kind of just stinks to watch, just all in general.
Mike, did he seem frustrated about it, just about everything?
I think in some regards, and from talking to people that are close to the program, I think the most frustrating part is he's never gonna throw his players under the bus. And from everything that I'm being told, and this wasn't from Frank today, this is just from talking to people that are close to the program. I think one of the most frustrating parts of it all, from a defensive standpoint, is that you have guys that are back, and Frank will never just throw players under the bus altogether. He's going to take ownership. And I think that's what good coaches do, great coaches do at that. Not being able to have those practices, right? I'm not trying to make excuses up, but let's connect some dots here. Frank Martin's defense is not easy to learn. I mean, we can go back over the years, players who have transferred in. Frank Booker, right, at the beginning of his tenure at South Carolina, it was night and day in comparison to what it was like once they got into conference play, right? Not being able to have those non-conference games from a defensive standpoint alone, I think is really taking a toll on South Carolina, because it's not an easy defense to learn. I mean, I think people just assume, okay, go out there, play man-to-man, play 2-3, play a 3-2, this and that, maybe box and one. That's not what Frank's defense is. That's just not what it is. And that's kind of been just the identity of a Frank Martin Gamecock team. And you can go back, obviously, to his Kansas State days. So I think it's really taking a toll. And then you factor in, obviously, losing some players, and you hear the news about Frank. It makes you wonder, how long has Frank and this team known about what's going on with him? We don't know the full details right now, but it just seemed like, from what Frank was talking about, hey, make sure you go out. If you're, get your body checked out, make sure you don't overlook anything. It makes you wonder how serious that could really be. And, if that's something that is serious, how much of a toll that's taking on a team that's obviously gone through a lot already this season.
Yeah. And I did say that he said, look, doctor said that Frank's going to be fine, but he's just not going to play anymore this year. Mm-hmm. From the fans' perspective, I mean, I get where frustration is with a lot of South Carolina fans right now. I'm not one of the, keyboard warriors or message board heroes that can't wait to get on there and tell everybody you should fire your coach or anything like that. I think that's always ridiculous. But Mike, you couple the fact that let's put this in perspective real quick for the fan base of South Carolina as it pertains to the basketball program. Mm-hmm. They're coming off of a frustrating 2-8 season in football, in which they fired their coach, just hired Shane Beamer, went through even more BS with some of the assistant coaches that were retained and then left the program. And so the last 60, 90 days or so has been very frustrating. The basketball program couldn't get on the floor because of coach. That was frustrating. However, people throughout the summer and throughout the fall were led to believe, and they should have been, because this is a talented basketball team. Hey, man, basketball is going to be back. And when they start playing, they're going to the tournament this year. This team's good. Like they're returning a bunch of players. You had Seventh Woods. This team's good. I mean, there was something to energize the fan base when they looked at this basketball program. And I think that now, after the last 3 games they've played, the close loss to LSU, that wasn't really anybody's crawl. It was just, it sucked. But the Missouri game, the way it fell apart early, the Auburn game, they weren't in it at all. People are just really frustrated, and their emotions are coming out. And I get it. I understand. Yeah. You interact with fans every day on social media. God bless you, because I don't want to do that.
A little more than I probably should, but yeah.
Yeah, you do. I mean, don't you understand where they're coming from?
Mm-hmm. And that's half the reason why I do it. I want to be able to get a pulse. Does social media represent the entire fan base or any fan base? Absolutely not. But you can sense the frustration. And I think more than anything, you look at a school like South Carolina, you feel like they should be a team that should have success and be able to at least make the tournament, once every other year. And the fact that they haven't made the tournament since that remarkable Final Four run in that 2016-17 season, it's taken a toll on people. And it makes you wonder, and I've always been a fan of Frank's in terms of from not just from a personal standpoint, but as a coach. And I think, he is the right fit right now. Some people might disagree with that, but, that's a story for another day. I don't know what would have happened if he had not had that Final Four run. Let's say they go to the Sweet 16. Let's say they lose to Duke, before going to the Sweet 16. Is Frank Martin still the head coach today on Tuesday, January 26, 2021? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that definitely plays a part in terms of why he's still here. But for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to put it together. And I think, unfortunately, because of what we've seen over the last couple seasons outside of that Final Four year, I think that is why the frustration seeps in a little bit more than maybe it should, because maybe some people, there's going to be fans, there's going to be people that will give South Carolina the benefit of the doubt this year. No question about it. But I think there's a lot of people that won't and don't want to, because it's like, okay, is it really COVID? Is it really this? Is it these reasons why South Carolina is not doing well? Or is it what we've seen over the last couple seasons? And I think that's a fair argument if you're a fan, but at the same time, too, at least from my perspective, I just have a hard time writing COVID off altogether, just knowing how important those reps are for a Frank Martin defense.
Yeah, Mike Uva, watch Fox. By the way, I love to point this out. This is the first time I ever really paid attention to Mike Uva and who he was, and thought, well, who the hell is this guy? The ever infamous Mike Uva video from the Village Idiot when Carolina went to the Final Four, entering his Jimmy Fallon in fever pitch when the Red Sox, of course, went to the World Series. Nice work, by the way. I still watch that video from time to time.
The good old days.
Yeah, beer all over him, pizza all over the place. Everybody was drunk except for the reporter, Mike.
I don't know. I mean, I had so much beer poured on me. I joked that it's only like a 5-minute ride back to the station from Village Idiot. If I got pulled over, I'm pretty sure my jacket would have, blown twice the legal limit that night.
Well, that was a fun night in history of Gamecock Athletics. Mm-hmm. Mike, let's get off of hoops for a second and move to football. The news of the day for South Carolina is that they have hired a new director of player personnel, if that's the official name. But it is Taylor Edwards, coming from Maryland, where he has spent the last 2 years as the director of recruiting operations. He did spend a year of director of recruiting at Arkansas. Of course, that tenure overlapped with wide receivers coach Justin Stepp. And then prior to that, he was an assistant director of recruiting at Alabama. So it looks like Shane Beamer has tapped into somebody with experience in this department and experience in this league. But I want to translate that conversation to something that Darren and I were having earlier. All right, so you were a college football player. You played at Assumption College.
Mm-hmm.
Is it college? Assumption College.
It's university now. They changed it a couple of years ago.
Okay, that's right.
I'm always going to call it college.
Okay, so Assumption University.
College.
Can I real quick? They used to call it ASCO. Now it's ASU. So yeah. I think that's what they call it now. I mean, it used to be called ASCO. So yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, so you're a great person to have this conversation with. You, one of the things that I really enjoy about your reporting is you try to keep your finger on the pulse of the whole circle of whatever it is that you're talking about. And with this Carolina football program right now, there are a lot of different angles to have the conversation about what is the future of South Carolina football. Mm-hmm. So one of my dear friends, who I'm a little bit older than, but we went to school together, Pat DeMarco, was able to head back yesterday, hang out with Shane and Coach Tanner and meet a bunch of the coaches. And Pat and I were talking last night, and he said, Jamie, this facility is ridiculous. He was like, dude, and this is him. I'm telling you a private conversation. This isn't BS. Man, I've been in the NFL for 10 years. I've been in and out of every ballpark, every facility you can go. I mean, I played for the Falcons. I played for Buffalo. Kansas City.
Yep.
I mean, this is as good as anywhere that I've seen in the NFL. And he had a bunch of conversations with all those coaches, and they all agree. But I have this conversation off of the one that Darren and I had. South Carolina rebounding off of a 6-16 2-year stretch under Will Muschamp, a school that's already behind the 8 ball with the teams that surround it, their rivals, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama. They have to get kids on campus, Mike. You got to. And the NCAA won't allow you to. And so they can't show off this pearl that they've got right there next to Williams-Brice Stadium and everything that they've built around. They can't do it. If you've got a 10-year NFL vet saying, this is the best I've ever seen, what do you think the impression is going to be on a 16 or 17-year-old kid? And they can't get kids on campus. As you've investigated and done your reporting with Carolina football, how much of an impact is that having on this coaching staff?
I'm sure it's difficult because what can you do, right? It's like you're trying to buy something, buy a car, because it's not like you're buying, a shirt or something. You're making a big investment when you commit to a school, right? And what's going to happen when a guy wants to buy a car? They're going to want to be able to see it. They want to be able to touch it. They want to be able to check out all the bells and whistles. You can't do that right now. What's the answer to that in terms of how you can solve that? Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of, and I know South Carolina did this to an extent at the beginning of the year, I believe, when they try to do like the virtual recruiting tours. I know Muschamp had some videos up there. It was like in downtown Columbia. He's down on Main Street, kind of showing people like, all right, this is what you would be doing. You'd be coming in on a Friday night and you do this. Or I can't remember the exact date when this was, or in the off season. But the point being is you have a tremendous video staff over there. Justin King and his crew do a tremendous job. If I'm Shane Beamer, now that I got these hires taken care of, the first thing I'm doing is going right to Justin King saying, what can we do to show this off? You're one of the best in the business. There's no question about it. What can we do? We've done things in the past, but I need you to get creative now for me. I need you to get creative for me. Do type of, a POV version of just walking through the facility. The problem with that, though, and maybe Beamer would agree or disagree with me on this, is when you do that, sometimes you give other schools a look at what's going on in the kitchen, and you're trying to hide that because you don't want people to kind of steal your ideas. But at the end of the day, look, people are going to be able to make better locker rooms. People are going to make arcade rooms, for the players, for their downtime and this and that. There's only so much that you can do. Take advantage, just be proud of what you have and just put it out there. Someone else wants to copy it, be my guest. Have fun with it. Own what you have, put it out there, and take advantage of having one of the best videographers and just videograph teams, I'd say, in college football with Justin King, and be able to get something out there, because I agree with you 100%. Right now, you have that facility and you're not able to show players, and it is not going to help you in the long run right now.
Yeah, I know we had Luke Day on yesterday. You had a couple of tweets yesterday about how in everyone that you've talked to, the impression's been outstanding essentially on the guys.
Yep.
And then Justin King, that video that was put out yesterday of the guys working out, man, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go do that, but that was a hell of a video.
It does not remind me of myself at all.
No.
Well, and I think that highlights even more, Mike, when you have to hire a guy that you trust in these director of player personnel recruiting roles now. Like, I know that there are some fans who are like, well, would they promote Connor Shaw to this? Who doesn't love Connor Shaw? My God, you don't even have to be a Carolina fan. Everybody loves Connor. He's a great guy. He was a hell of a player. But you got to have a guy in this role. You got 2,500 kids in the transfer portal right now. You can't get kids on campus. You get every time, if you're Shane Beamer or any other coach in America, you can tweet, have a great day, and you got 50 kids who respond with their huddle clips. I mean, you got to have an experienced guy to navigate through this. What do you know about that role?
Well, I mean, it's one of those roles that as Huddle and just technology, obviously Huddle's a recruiting, it's a tool that people use for recruiting, but it also is a tool that people just watch game film with, I mean, teams can be able to exchange film a little bit easier too if they want to do that. What I can say about that is it's changed over time, right? You look back to the early 2000s, you look at when Miami, some of the Florida State teams, they were so dominant, 80s, 70s, 90s. People really kind of just stayed in their own area. But now with Huddle, now with being able to share your footage on social media and online, it's really took things to the next level. So, it makes things easier in terms of being able to see players from all across the country. But at the same time, too, just like we see sometimes with TV, right? It's not the old days of just having channel 4 or 5, whatever. You have thousands of channels, right? And you have to navigate through everything. So it makes things easier in a sense because there's more options to be able to look at different players and be able to get the best of the best. But now you got to find a way to be able to whittle that down. Now you have to do your homework in terms of finding out, okay, not only is player X a good player, but he would be a good fit here. And now he's a good fit. What is his grades like? What would he do here? Where would we use him? Can we use him at multiple positions? He's a defensive player. But can we use him at receiver? I mean, these are the questions that you go through. And right now it's challenging because you can't get these players on campus. I mean, I think back to my recruiting visit and even some of the recruiting visits that I was one of the hosts. You have some of these guys come in and you're a sophomore, junior, and you're a host for the night. And they put these players through workout. They want to be able to see them move around a little bit, how their hips going to look, this and that. You don't have the ability to be able to do that. And the best way to compare it to is kind of like going back to free agency in the NFL last year. Some of these NFL players were not able to come in, and even not just NFL veteran players, but some of the rookies weren't able to get workouts right away because of the lockdown. And it put a lot of players behind the 8 ball. So in the same regard, same aspect as the NFL, I think it's having an impact on South Carolina. And what you need now, not just South Carolina, but all colleges, what you need now is a guy that just understands, the ins and outs of college football and can find a way, kind of like we talked about with Justin King. You got to be able to get creative. You need to be able to find ways to find out good player, good fit. How does he look, though, without being able to actually see him in person, since we can't have those in-person visits?
Yeah, really good stuff. 1:30 here on this Tuesday afternoon. Mike, we got to let you run. We do have Gene Sapakoff coming up next, but I know that you tweeted at the end of last week for a lot of your followers and fans. Well, you have fans.
No, I have none. I pay them off. They're all bots.
Yeah, you're like Darren and I.
They're both fans of the sandwich, and they're following you for the sandwich.
Yeah, I've paid all 11 followers, so yeah, I'm broke now. Well, you have some announcements coming up this week, so we need to keep an eye on it, right?
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I was optimistic that I'd be able to put something out either yesterday or even hopefully today. As soon as I get the green light, because it's above my pay grade, I will definitely put that out there. There's a couple announcements that I'm excited about. So I think, people will enjoy it. For one major thing that I'm looking forward to do, but there's a couple things that are pretty neat as well. So I'm looking forward to putting that out there. And I will say this, just the other night after I got off, I decided to go to a local bar, and I had 4 people come up to me, and that's probably 4 more than I've ever had in my whole career. And they didn't ask me about a story I've done or whatever. They said, "You're the biscuit guy." So this is, like I said, this is my Al Bundy poke high 4 touchdowns in 1 game moment. People aren't talking to me about my stories. They're talking about this damn biscuit, but we'll ride this wave out as long as we can.
That's right. Take that fame and run with it, man.
There you go.
Gotta want to need to get a have a Bo Yuva is the new term. I'll piggyback his comments. I know what he's up to. So I'll tell people from my end, they'll like this.
Good.
They'll like this. We'll like this. Everybody will like this. So
I'm looking forward. I appreciate that.
Mike broke secrecy and he let me in on the.
And I said I'm not going to Auburn, though. I did say that I'm not going to Auburn. I know I'm going to be looking for a D-line coach. By the way, I put out a number the other day. People really thought I put Jimmy Lindsay's number on the line. No, that was a Bojangles number. But I mean, people get all sensitive. They're like, "Oh, geez,
dude, you can't. You just whatever." It's social media. All right. Well, we're gonna look for those announcements, and once you get them out there, we'll plug you back in around here. We'll help push it along. How about that?
Awesome. I appreciate both of you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. Mike, thank you so much as always. Wonderful stuff, and we'll talk soon, brother.
You guys take care, bud.
There you go, Mike Yuva with Watch Fox News. Watch Fox News. All right. There is good news for South Carolina, real quick. Both quarterback Jason Brown and wide receiver E.J. Jenkins from St. Francis have been admitted to school. So they'll be there on March 1st for the Gamecocks in time for spring practice. All right. We really need a timeout because we skipped right over it. So we're going to take a timeout. When we return, Gene Sapakoff with the Post and Courier will hop in right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
To have a radio station everyone loves.
I love them a lot.
JB and Darren.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud. I love you, dude. I love you, bro Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Quibbles. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Chico Broje.
Okay. Let's continue here.
On the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, final segment on this Tuesday afternoon. We are just running behind. But welcome back to JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control and Business. Over 4 decades, it's that time. Keep the critters out, McFaddenPestControl.com, to be able to get in touch with Heath Gunther and his team here in the Tri-County area. Let them take care of you as they do my home and have for over 3 years, and they'll be here on the 28th. What's today? 26th?
6th. Yeah, you got 2 days.
So Thursday, they'll be at our house to make sure that the critters don't come in, and they make sure the mosquitoes don't in the spring, and they make sure that termites aren't. We have a termite bond with them. They're the best. McFaddenPestControl.com. All right. Sorry, Gene Sapakoff. We've been running behind all day. I apologize, but welcome. Good afternoon.
Hey, Jamie, is the former Wando High School Baseball Hall of Fame vote due today? And
yeah,
do you have any idea what percentage you might get in that?
If there's anything below 0, that would be probably right around where I would be.
You can't even get one?
I might have a vote or two. I got to call Mike Sisko and see who he's voting for. He hadn't voted for me in 10 years, so I don't know. Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, look, man, I had like one good year.
That's all it takes sometimes, though, you know.
I hit 5 bombs, though, 2 in the playoffs in the same game.
That's all that matters. Yeah. But I'm glad you bring it up, Gene, because so last night, and my mom's great at finding decent articles every now and then, there's a Wall Street Journal article, and there have been many others about the exact same point. Is this going to be a year where no one gets into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and should, at some point, guys like Clemens and Bonds get in?
Well, there's been a few other years. I think 2013 was the last time that nobody got in. It's always weird when these guys, like, there'll be 5 guys. I think that might have been the Biggio year where he came up just short and a few others behind him, and they eventually get in. That just drives me crazy. If you don't think they're Hall of Famers in that year, what changed your mind? I understand some things with like different analytics and so forth, but man, if you didn't think Biggio was a Hall of Famer, or you do think he was, that seems pretty cut and dry to me. So it's not that weird that nobody gets in. And remember, since there was, I mean, I know you know this, but just for the listeners, since there was no official ceremony last year, there will be a ceremony with guys getting in the Hall of Fame, Derek Jeter and Larry Walker and Marvin Miller and all those few other people. So there'll be a ceremony. And what was the other question?
Well, I mean, will we reach a point where maybe guys like Bonds, Clemens,
I think if they don't get in this year, and there's a lot of reasons why I think it could be really close, I think it's going to be a long time, but that somehow they will eventually get in. But the way I see it is, if the writers don't let them in and they're really, obviously running out of time, I don't see any sort of veteran committee pass in like the next 10, 15 years, because those guys seem to be very much on the record as being opposed to the steroid era. However, when a bunch of younger people get kind of in control of those committees, I think eventually they will look back and say that they should be in, and maybe even because, well, they've served this long, punishment, if you will, of not being in.
Well, and you're right. And I agree with you. I totally agree with that statement. I think it's going to take a generational change on the Veterans Committee in order to get some of these guys in. Oh, look, I personally think that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Curt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame. I know there's people who disagree with his politics, and I look, he says some stuff sometimes I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And I get it, but these guys, I mean, look, I thought Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer, Gene, probably, I don't know,
before he went to San Francisco.
Yeah, 8-10 years before all this stuff even started, I thought he was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I can't think of a more fun, enjoyable argument that I have than Baseball Hall of Fame. And you look at like some of the Bill James books, and it's just such a fascinating argument. And there's kind of the Bob Costas theory of what you said, that they were Hall of Famers and that you can differentiate with Bonds and Clemens than some other guys like, say, even McGuire and Sosa that, really built their Hall of Fame credentials on steroids. But then there's the Tom Verducci wing that is pretty much, hey, you're either in or you're out. I'm of that latter. I wouldn't put them in. And I listen to what those veteran players say. And I mean, so many of them are just so adamantly against putting those guys in. So I don't know. It'd be interesting for you to talk to somebody like Bryce Flory or somebody and see what he says about this. But I just think you're either in or you're out, and it's just hard to split the hairs there.
Well, and
one more thing, the Pete Rose thing is a completely separate argument.
Yeah.
The Pete Rose problem is they're not allowed to vote for him,
right?
And I think that is ridiculous. Whether or not he deserves to be in, that's a question. But it's insane that they're not allowed to vote for him.
Yeah, I agree with that, and you're right. It's a totally separate argument, and Gene, I mean, again, I go back to what you said a moment ago. As generations change in baseball, I think time heals all wounds in this country, or at least it used to. I don't know if it will in the future, but it used to. And I do think at some point in time is going to be a group of people that come along and say, look, they paid their dues. It's over. For Pete Rose, it might be when he's not on Earth anymore. Unfortunately, it might be after his passing. I don't know. Let me ask you about this one real quick. This is a name to some who pay attention to the Baseball Hall of Fame, which I personally, but I'm a baseball guy and all know that, I personally think is the most sacred Hall of Fame that's in sport in this country. Omar Vizquel. All right. So last year, I think he was on like 53 or something percent of the ballots. He's been in it. He's had a chance to qualify for 4 straight years. If you look at his offensive numbers, Gene, I mean, the guy only hit 80 home runs in his career, didn't have 1,000 RBI or anything like that, but he won 11 Gold Gloves as a shortstop. Well, how much stock are we putting under the defensive side of things in baseball in today's Hall of Fame ballot voting?
I wouldn't describe myself as a purist, but I do like, defense, hitting behind runners, clubhouse personality, all that stuff. But I just don't think he did enough offensively.
Okay.
And those gloves, the Gold Gloves were good, but then you come up against the Hall of Fame, much bigger guys, physical batters, just better all around players. And I think he's going to have a really hard time ever getting in. And here's another great argument. what does WAR and some of the other things like OPS plus and things do to different candidates? I mean, sometimes they boost stock. Like, look at Scott Rowland. Did you think he was a Hall of Famer a couple years ago? I don't know, but now the advanced metrics say he sure is. So, I'd vote down on Vizquel. Sorry.
Okay. No. That's, I mean, it's just interesting because he's a guy with a bunch of gold gloves. And so it's a great argument to have. Yep. And so is this one. And I'll go to the grave with this.
Say. This is Andrew Jones.
Andrew Jones.
Yes.
Look, he's a Hall of Famer, Gene, in my book. In my book, he's a Hall of Famer.
Hard for me to argue against that. I talked to Andrew and I talked to some of the baseball experts like John Heyman about this a few years ago for a column in the Post and Courier. All I know is I went to lots of Braves games and lots of Braves clubhouses talking to Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, and everybody else, and they would swear by this guy. He changed and dictated to some extent the way they pitched.
Yep.
So, like Greg Maddux would tell him, Andrew, this ball's going to be on the warning track to, Johnson on the third pitch, be there. And I mean, just the pursuit angles that guy took were unreal. Some players now, like Jackie Bradley, are about as good, but didn't have the kind of pop that Andrew Jones had. And I do think that he's probably a Hall of Famer. And whether he'll make it or not, I'm not really sure. I think we've talked about this before. He may have hung around a little too long.
You're right.
And so people have that taint of what he was at the end. But man, in those Braves glory years, he was so valuable.
Well, and you're right, because his last 5 seasons in baseball, he was in 4 different organizations, and that hurt him. He had injury issues. He didn't swing the bat well, and he's been on the ballot, I think 4 times, or I think it's 4 times, Gene. And that's more of what I'm looking at this year. Even if there are of this list, you got Schilling, Clemens, Bonds, Sheffield, who by the way had a wonderful career, over 500 home runs, all these guys. Even if none of them make it, I'm anxious to see what percentage of the vote they get. Like, does Andrews go from 19 to say 40? Because then that gives me better confidence that by the time he gets to, year 6, 7, 8, 9, he might be in this thing. He might crack it.
Right. And there's a Veterans Committee guy that I think that they could be very kind to him at the end when they start to look at that, and you start to get this crescendo of not just former Braves pitchers, but others just saying like the value that he was and, how he changed games. I mean, just, not to get way inside baseball, but range factor. I mean, he almost invented that term in the outfield. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Fred McGriff should be in the Hall of Fame too.
I agree. I mean, I think I like Fred McGriff a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he was 3 home runs shy of 500. Like, for people that don't actually look at the information, they just glance by it because there's not a 5 starting that number off. I mean, 497 home runs in that era was a ton of home runs.
Yes.
That's crazy. All right, Gene, what else do we want to talk about? Because now I'm just frustrated.
Well, here, I'll go with this. There are lots of thoughts. Gene, you alluded to it, and we kind of just glossed it a little. There are lots of thoughts that this could be another year without anyone getting in, but you mentioned you're not sure of that. Who might get in this year?
Well, I think Schilling really deserves to be in. He has the highest WAR of anybody that's not in, that's not either tainted by steroids or Pete Rose or ineligible or currently active, like a Pujols type guy. So I think he deserves to get in. I know he's got controversy off the field, which I do think that kind of stuff should be considered. If you are in prison, if you're just a terrible person, whatever. I mean, you're can consider character in voting for the Heisman or Baseball Hall of Fame or the President of the U.S. or anything else. You're allowed to consider whatever the heck you want. That's fine. But I think he should be in. And if there's anybody else that should be in, I don't know. I mean, Rowland, I'm really torn with him. I see the metrics. I appreciate them. He just didn't seem to me to scream Hall of Famer. I've thought Todd Helton was a Hall of Famer too, but boy, if you look at the Coors Field road splits, it's not very good, and his power just really went down. I'm not pointing any fingers, but strangely, at one point, it just like went off the chart down. So I don't know. I like Todd Helton. I like Scott Rowland, but I don't think I could pick anybody but Schilling on this ballot.
Well, and to his point about character, the Hall of Fame ballot explicitly says quote, voting shall be based upon the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the team or teams in which the player played.
Right.
So
See, now that's where I'll tell you what, again, the one major league team in major league history I happen to know a lot about, because spent a lot of time covering those 14 straight Braves title teams, is, man, did they think Fred McGriff was a really good clubhouse guy too.
Yeah.
And, he came here to Charleston with the Rays when the Rays were a River Dogs affiliate the first time. They played an exhibition game in Charleston, and they brought McGriff, Boggs, and Canseco on that team.
Oh, I forgot about
and,
that.
McGriff just was like the nicest guy. I mean, I just think, I think he meant a lot more to the team than any stats could show.
Great stash too. Absolutely. All right. We know this guy's a Hall of Famer in every form of the phrase. Hank Aaron, of course, has left us here with maybe the greatest legacy in the history of the sport. When you have a conversation about Hank Aaron, Gene, as one day you'll probably be a grandfather, unless you are, and I don't know about it. How will you describe Hank Aaron to your grandchildren? How should his legacy be viewed for generations to come?
Just as classy and talented as anyone on and off the field. He meant a lot to people on the field. The consistency was so ridiculously good, it was almost boring, in that he is second by 7 home runs in career homers, and yet won just 4 home run titles. He has the most total bases and the most RBIs. Those are pretty amazing stats to have the most total bases and most RBIs, by the way. 1 MVP. And it's not like he was screwed in a lot of those MVP races. He just hit, 40, 41 homers and drove in 110 runs every year, but never 62 homers and never or rarely homers in the 20s. I mean, it was amazing. But then just what a good class, wholesome guy off the field, but not silent when it came to race relations, just not calling a lot of attention to himself. And just the perfect guy at the perfect time in the perfect city to inspire people. Being an Atlanta Brave starting in 1966, just amazing. I mean, I really think Hank Aaron helped usher in integration of the SEC and the ACC.
You didn't Hank Aaron's, like, if you look at his stats, you go and you pull up his career from 1954 till 1976, and you look at the consistency. Didn't that reflect who he was as a man? I mean, he was just a consistent person. Yeah, exactly. And I've been around him, a few times at Braves related things, and just so low key, but yet direct, matter of fact, no screwing around. No, he's not turning down his head and not talking about things, but just, he's not loud at all. I mean, I don't know. Has anyone ever heard him raise his voice? It was just an amazing player. Just an amazing contributor to not just baseball, but just all of America,
What's the most overlooked thing about Hank Aaron, aside from the general perception that, he's a home run hitter and that's all he was? Aside from that glaring mistake in terms of categorizing who he was, what's the biggest thing that's overlooked about his career and him as a person?
I'd say 3 things. One, good base runner, good fielder, not great at either, but good. And, but really just an excellent mentor. I remember, reading a lot when I was a kid coming up about like the 74 Braves when he hit 715 and how much those guys, Davey Johnson, Mike Lum, Ralph Garr, Dusty Baker, were all on that team and how much they look up to him. But then now, how Dusty Baker has said, not just last week, but throughout his managerial career, how Hank Aaron really shaped him. And you just see a lot of Hank Aaron and Dusty Baker, just kind of quiet, in control, and but also very direct. So I think he was really underrated as a mentor for a lot of young players. And, not just Dusty Baker, but Davey Johnson, went on to lead the Mets to a World Series rings. And so, I mean, some of that goes back to Hank Aaron.
Yeah, and I'd add to that. Everybody talks about Hank Aaron and his home runs, 755, and I get it. I would add this: 25-time All-Star. He was an All-Star every year from 1955 until 1970 or something. I mean, or 20-time All-Star, whatever it is. He was an All-Star every year. Every year. It's remarkable.
Also, to think about this, I mean, I think I'm right on the math here. If you want to get past Hank Aaron in home runs, just hit 40 homers a year for 19 straight years, and I think you'll get 760. So,
okay, let me get on that.
That's all that would take.
let me get on that. I'll get back to you.
That's a good point. 20-time All-Star, but if you include games in the Negro Leagues? Negro Leagues, 25-time All-Star. Just remarkable. All right, Gene, couple minutes left here. So you have a column out. Thorne said, talking about Preston Thorne, who played football for the Gamecocks. Thorne says Gamecocks must copy Clemson, hire more alumni. I've read the column. I would encourage people to go read the column. It's very good at postandcourier.com. Very well written, of course, as it always is, by Gene Sapakoff. What did you learn there? I mean, Preston Thorne's a great guy, low country guy, big time Gamecock, as we all know, and things like that. But what did you learn in that conversation about what is currently going on in this state with football?
Yeah, well, Preston Thorne, Langston Moore, Nashawn Goddard, some of the guys have been trying to lobby behind the scenes and see if they can get more Gamecocks hired into Gamecock land in the football building. And he, like he said in the story, he's cautiously optimistic about the start of the Shane Beamer era. And Shane has said he wants to bring more Gamecocks in. But what I think Preston Thorne, Langston Moore, some of these other guys are concerned about is that let's not stop now. Let's continue with this development of, analysts that turn into assistant coaches and then assistant coaches that turn into coordinators. And that's what's going on at Clemson. I mean, with CJ Spiller coming on board, there's 4 former Clemson players now on Dabo's staff. And plus he's got a bunch of analysts that played at Clemson, or at least a handful. I think this time is ripe for this at South Carolina. It's not even really controversial. You're going to have a whole bunch of guys kind of come out of the NFL or just recently did from the Spurrier era that are going to want to get into coaching. And this is going to be a really beneficial thing for Shane Beamer, I think, to tap into some of that. And, Devontae Holloman's already a high school coach. And I mean, we could speculate as to which other of these former Gamecocks would want to go into coaching, but some of those could be really intriguing. I'll tell you that.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, I don't have to speculate. I know some of the names. Of course, I'm not going to say any of them publicly because we don't know what's going to happen with them yet. But, Gene, there are some very quality guys from that era of football who are interested if it's right, and they're qualified. But if the situation is right for them to be on staff, and Shane has even made that point to them. I just don't know if this spot right here is right for you at this point in time.
Yeah.
As Steve Spurrier always said, it's timing is everything.
Sure. And some of them might not quite be ready, like you're sort of saying there. And, but when they are, this is going to be great. And so let's say you hire a former Gamecock who's from South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina or something. I mean, like Preston Thorne was saying in this story, those guys go back and in their home communities now, it just adds interest, inspires high school kids, middle school kids. I mean, that's just the kind of thing you want going because, this isn't like pro Clemson or pro South Carolina. The fact is South Carolina has more alums. They're more centrally located and they can have a chance to really tap into this thing if they do it right.
Yep. No question. All right, Gene, what are we watching or looking for in the next couple of days in the Post and Courier?
Okay. Well, I have a winners and losers in the minor league baseball shuffle in South Carolina column coming tomorrow. I had to hold that from last week because of Hank Aaron's, tragic death. And also a column about the First Tee program in Charleston offering free golf to kids and children and youth, high school kids to try to get them involved in golf, free golf, free clubs even to use and things. I think that's a really cool thing. And then, coming up after that at some point will be a Super Bowl quiz. So
quiz.
Yeah.
Perfect. I've heard about the golf thing. My mom mentioned that.
No, I think it's. I hadn't heard about it, but as soon as you said it, I was like, "Yep, there it is. That's the way to get Grayson in."
Yeah,
yeah.
I've heard about it. This
All
is an awesome. I'm really looking forward to reading all of that. We always are. Gene, thank you so much, my friend. Have a terrific Tuesday afternoon. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
There you go, Gene Sapakoff. Of course, a lot on the Hall of Fame today with Gene. Hall of Fame vote, by the way, tonight comes out at 6 o'clock. Real quick on the what day is it calendar. It's National Spouses Day. Love your spouse.
There you go.
And it's also National Plan for Vacation Day. So love your spouse and plan a vacation together.
Yeah. If I can walk tomorrow, I'll plan a vacation.
Yeah, there you go. We didn't get everything, but we got most of it.
Flew by, though.
Yeah, it did. It sure did. By the way, check out this new Twitter handle, @BoardGeniuses. It makes fun of the message board heroes out there.
That sounds pretty good.
It's pretty funny. Give them a follow, @BoardGeniuses. I've done that. All right, thanks to Gene. Thanks to Mike Morgan. Thanks to Mike Yuba. Thanks to Darren Goldwater. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening to our program. J.C. Sherbert, a full hour tomorrow. We'll see you then at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.